It's a warm afternoon in Briar Creek, the kind of upscale Charlotte neighborhood where lawns look like golf courses, and even the dogs seem to have better dental plans than most people. 14-year-old Malik Johnson is coasting along on his birthday bike matte black frame, red trim, smooth shifting gears that make this thing glide like it's on air. His dad worked extra hours for months to buy it, and today's the first time Malik's taken it farther than his own block. He's got the helmet on, he's obeying every stop sign, he's polite to everyone he passes. This isn't a rebel without a cause, it's just a kid out for a ride. And yet, 3 minutes later, a man with 30 years on the police force is about to turn it into a crime scene. Officer Craig Dunley has a uniform crisp enough to pass a detergent commercial, but a file fat enough to make internal affairs sweat. Commendations on top to hide the write-ups underneath. Historians still argue whether that's a sign of resilience or a red flag with paperwork. He spots Malik, and maybe it's the $1,000 shine of the bike, maybe it's the ease in the boy's shoulders, maybe it's just the quiet prejudice he's carried like lint in his pocket, but his pulse jumps. "Stop right there," he calls, boots hitting the asphalt like he's marching into a standoff. Malik stops. He's confused, but calm tells him his dad works in law enforcement. Dunley sneers, tossing out guesses like mall cop, night guard, anything to chip away at dignity. When Malik finally says he's a federal agent, the officer's grin drops like a bad Wi-Fi connection. Close enough to smell the nicotine, Dunley grabs the handlebars. Malik stumbles, protests, and in a blink flash of metal, steel knuckles connect with skin. The sound is sharp enough to make a jogger freeze mid-stride and a man with buffalo wings in a paper bag forget they're getting cold. Malik's head snaps sideways, cheek meeting concrete, a red bloom spreading under him. From across the street, Reggie Dean, former Army Staff Sergeant, now living under the overpass, sees it all. He's been invisible to this city for years, but not blind. His phone is duct taped together, his coat's got holes, but the camera works. He starts recording, not for likes, but because he's seen too many moments like this vanish into rumor. Malik's confused eyes search for reason as Dunley cuffs him, muttering charges about resisting and theft. None of it's true, all of it loud enough for the crowd to hear, though no one's stepping forward yet. Inside the cruiser, Malik stares ahead, whispering to himself like his dad once taught him. Think, think, think. At the holding cell, he makes the call. 2 rings. "Dad, it's me." And on the other end, Darius Johnson, FBI, Civil Rights Division, doesn't shout, doesn't panic. He just says, "Don't talk to anyone else. I'm on my way." And somewhere between that sentence and the slam of the receiver, the story shifts from a street corner to a reckoning. By the time Darius Johnson reaches the 14th precinct, the afternoon sun has slipped into that hazy gold that makes even municipal concrete look almost dignified, but he's not here for the scenery. He steps through the front doors without sirens, without a badge flash, just carrying that quiet authority that makes the air drop a few degrees. The desk sergeant barely glances up until he says, "Name, Malik Johnson." "My son." When she tries the usual wait here routine, he lays down his FBI credentials: supervisory special agent, Civil Rights Division, and the room's temperature drops another 10. In a back hallway, Malik sits on a metal bench, ribs aching, one eye swelling shut. Officer Maria Torres, 6 months on the force, and still stubborn enough to notice when things smell wrong, hands him a water bottle and asks if he's okay. He says no, simple, flat, honest. She leaves to check his intake report, finds the emergency contact flagging him as a protected FBI dependent, and feels her stomach sink. Historians still argue whether moments like this are when a career begins or ends. Meanwhile, Darius is face-to-face with Captain Henry Fowler, a man who's been in command long enough to master the art of saying "we'll look into it" without moving a muscle. But this time, Darius has a weapon Fowler can't sidestep: Reggie Dean's video, already at 300,000 views and climbing. The punch, the blood, the crowd's stunned silence, it's all there. Fowler stammers that he didn't know it existed. "You didn't ask," Darius replies. Torres uncovers more. Dunley declined his body cam that morning, claiming a dead battery, except the logs show it was fully charged. Cruiser dashcam, a perfectly timed 20-minute blackout between arrest an arrival at the precinct. She brings it to Fowler, who mutters about malfunctions, but Darius cuts in. That's not a malfunction. That's erasure. Outside, the story's catching fire. The hashtag Justice for Malik is trending. Students, parents, activists are gathering in front of the building. Fowler tries to calm Darius with talk of protocols. Darius steps closer, voice low enough to slice. I'm not just here as a father. I prosecute cops who violate the Constitution. You're running out of time to choose your side. Then the manila envelope arrives at a local newsroom, no return address. Inside, brass knuckles, still stained, tagged with an internal evidence sticker. And a note, I was wrong, but I'm not the only one. Forensics match them to Malik's injuries. Torres guesses the leak came from inside someone cracking under the weight. By nightfall, Darius is in a conference room with DOJ liaisons. Fowler's looking sweatier than his coffee mug, and outside the crowd has grown into a small city. Food trucks, tents, legal observers. On TV, WBNC runs Reggie's video uncut. For the first time in years, the city sees Reggie Dean not as that homeless vet, but as a witness whose camera might just dismantle an entire cover-up. In the motor pool logs, Torres finds two other names accessing Dunley's cruiser minutes after the arrest Logan Watts and Drew Marley. One's a buddy, the other wasn't even on duty. Both suddenly on the radar. And in that moment, the walls of the precinct don't feel like they're holding up a building anymore. They're holding back a tide that's about to break. The trial opens in a packed courtroom, the kind of space where the air feels too thin for the number of people crammed inside. Parents, students, activists, even off-duty cops fill the benches. Everyone wanted to see if justice can actually walk further than the lobby. Malik sits in the front row, suit jacket a little too big on his healing frame, flanked by his father on one side and Maria Torres on the other. Across the aisle, Craig Dunley looks smaller without the uniform, though the stubborn set of his jaw still says he thinks this is just a bad week, not the end of a career. The prosecution doesn't waste time. Reggie's video plays on the big screen, brass knuckles glinting in evidence bags, nurse testimony laying out injuries too precise to be accidental. Torres testifies about the missing body cam and cruiser blackout. The defense leans on fear. Malik as mouthy, Dunley as conditioned by a tough policing culture. Historians still argue whether that's the oldest excuse in the book or the most dangerous. Then comes the twist. An anonymous video shows Officer Logan Watts removing the brass knuckles from an evidence locker. It lands like a thunderclap. Even jurors mutter curses. Dunley tries to shift the blame, muttering about not acting alone, and suddenly the narrative isn't one bad apple, it's the whole tree leaning rotten. When Malik takes a stand, the room stills. He speaks plainly, how he stopped when told, never resisted, never threatened, and still ended up with blood in his mouth. I was breathing, he tells the jury, and to him that was enough to make me dangerous. No cross-examination, the defense won't risk it. The verdict comes fast, guilty on assault, falsifying a report, and obstruction. Nobody. Deputies lead Dunley away, but Malik's not smiling. Outside, the crowd cheers, drums pound, signs wave, and Malik turns to his father and asks, "Did we win?" Darius's voice is soft. No, but they saw, and that's how it starts. Months later, Malik's letter, "I was breathing, and that was enough," is printed, posted, and read from pulpits and school assemblies. Policies shift, faster body cam release, public misconduct hotlines, writes posters in schools. Reggie speaks at high schools. Maria pushes reforms from inside a new equity office. Malik joins the City Youth Advisory Board, the youngest member, pushing for transparency without hesitation. 1 year after the punch, Malik finally reaches Lincoln Park, not as a kid on a bike, but as a speaker at a community justice forum. He thanks the man who recorded, the judge who didn't flinch, the father who refused silence. And as applause rolls over the park, an 11-year-old girl in the crowd quietly pulls out her phone and starts recording. Not because anyone told her to, but because she's learned something important, that truth only survives when someone is willing to hold it in frame. The applause fades, the park settles, and Malik steps down from the podium into a future where the fight isn't over, but the silence has been broken. The crowd thins slowly, like waves rolling back after a storm, leaving behind the damp scent of rain on grass and the faint echo of voices that had filled the park only moments before. Malik sits on the edge of the stage, feet dangling, his hands resting loosely on his knees, watching the last signs come down and the volunteers fold chairs into neat stacks. Across the lawn, Darius stands beneath the same oak where he'd been during the speech, the late sun slipping through the leaves, dappling his gray suit with gold. The city sounds feel softer now, laughter from a food truck line, the low murmur of people saying goodbye, the distant hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Even the wind seems to move differently, carrying with it the warmth of a day where something had shifted, however slightly, in the bones of the community. Maria passes by, giving Malik a nod that says more than any speech, a quiet affirmation that she's still here, still watching, still working. He tilts his head back, eyes tracing the sky where the last streaks of daylight stretch toward evening. The fight ahead feels big, bigger than him, but for the first time in a long while, it doesn't feel lonely. Because he knows there are others: the man with the battered phone, the officer who chose truth over silence, the strangers holding signs in the rain, all carrying a piece of the same weight. And as the park empties, as the noise dwindles to the whisper of the wind through the trees, Malik lets out a long, slow breath. Not the breath of someone bracing for impact, but the kind you take when you've made it through to the other side and you're ready for whatever comes next.